Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into a huge question. Why are the business strategies that worked for decades suddenly failing? We're going to look at why some companies adapt and thrive, while others, well, they just disappear. And it all boils down to a brand new way of looking at the world.
Okay, so before we jump into the new rules, we've got to understand why the old ones broke. I mean, these were the bedrock principles of business strategy for ages. So what happened? Why did they just stop working?
You know, for the longest time, business school taught strategy like it was a game of chess. You've got your opponent, you've got a clear board, you know the rules, it's all about outmaneuvering the other guy. But what happens when you look down and realize you're not even playing chess anymore? And that trusty map you've been using, it's literally falling apart. So here's the old way of thinking. You're in an industry. It's like a fortress with clear walls. You know who's inside and you know who's outside. But the new reality? It's a messy, tangled ecosystem. The boundaries are totally blurry. And you've got this wild idea of coopetition. I mean, just think about Apple and Samsung. They're at each other's throats in the smartphone market, right? But at the same time, Samsung is one of Apple's most important suppliers for iPhone parts. It's a world where your biggest rival might also be your best partner. And the classic tool for this old worldview was, of course, Quarter's Five Forces. For decades, this thing was like the holy grail of strategy. It helped you analyze your industry by looking at competition, the power of your suppliers and buyers, and the threat of new companies. It was all about finding your defensible spot, your moat. And in that simple world, it worked beautifully. But today, that rigid model is really showing its age. It just can't handle a world where your supplier is also your enemy, or where brand new industries just pop into existence out of thin air, you know? It's like trying to use a 19th century map to navigate a modern city. It's just not going to work. We absolutely need a new framework. So, if that old mechanical chessboard view of business is out, what's in? Well, the answer is pretty surprising. It doesn't come from engineering or economics. It comes from biology. Yeah, that's right. Let's talk about the business ecosystem. This idea was floated by a guy named James Moore way back in '93. And he said, stop thinking about a static industry. Start thinking about a dynamic, living ecosystem. The big idea, the absolute core of it, is that everyone is connected. Your company's success isn't just about how well you do. It's about the health of the entire network you're a part of. And what's so cool about this analogy is that it just makes sense, right? I mean, think about a coral reef. You get it. You know that for the fish to be healthy, the coral has to be healthy, the water has to be clean, the whole system matters. And that's exactly what we're talking about in business now. For any one company to really succeed, the whole network has to be thriving. And this biology metaphor, it gets even better. Just like in nature, different companies play different roles. Not everyone's a lion, you know? Some are the foundation of everything, while others find a very specific, specialized job to do. So let's break down the main roles you can play in one of these ecosystems. Okay, so this breaks it down into 4 key roles. The big difference really comes down to whether you're trying to be dominant or not. You can be a keystone, think Microsoft or Walmart, where you're actually building the platform that helps everyone else succeed. Or you could be a dominator, trying to own and control the whole thing. Then there's the hub landlord, think Enron, a parasite, basically, just sucking value out. And finally, you can be a niche player, a specialist who finds a perfect little spot to add value and thrive. But here's the thing. These roles aren't permanent. Not at all. I mean, look at NVIDIA. They started out as a classic niche player, just making graphics cards for the PC ecosystem, which was dominated by others. But today they are the undisputed keystone of the entire AI world. It just shows you how fast these things can change. All right, to really bring this all home, let's dive into a case study. And honestly, it's one of the most dramatic business stories of our time. So you've got 2 giants, Kodak and Fujifilm. For decades, they were the photography world. And then, bam, they both get hit by the exact same tidal wave, the digital camera. It was a threat to their very existence. But look at these numbers. The results could not have been more different. One basically disappeared. The other is a multi-billion-dollar success. So the question is, why? First up, let's talk about Kodak, the company that, in a crazy twist of fate, literally invented the future that would eventually destroy it. This is just wild. Kodak wasn't blindsided. They invented the first digital camera in 1975, but they buried it. Why? Because their entire business, their whole profitable world was built on film and chemicals and paper. They were just too locked into their old ecosystem. So when they finally, reluctantly, tried to play in the new digital game, they discovered they just didn't have the right DNA for it. And this quote from their CEO, this is everything. It's the smoking gun. The company's specialty is in imaging, not chemistry. That one sentence was their death knell. By calling themselves an imaging company, they walked right into a brutal fight in the low-margin consumer electronics business. It was a fight they were never, ever equipped to win. Okay, now let's flip the coin and look at Fujifilm. They seared into the same abyss, the same crisis, but they saw something totally different. And that's because they asked a much better question. What business are we really in? So instead of just trying to fight a war they couldn't win, the cheap digital camera war, Fujifilm's CEO did something genius. He took a huge step back. He didn't ask, how do we make better cameras? He asked, what are our core genes? What is the one thing we are better at than anyone else? And the answer wasn't making photos. It was chemistry. Super advanced, high-precision chemistry. And this is the pivot that changed everything. They realized that the same anti-oxidation chemicals they used to stop photos from fading over time, well, that same science could stop human skin from aging. It's absolutely brilliant. The tech that saved your vacation photos could now be used in high-end face creams. So they jumped into the cosmetics business. Just look at the results. It's truly incredible. By 2017, Fujifilm, the film company, was now this massive, diversified tech conglomerate. Their old business, imaging, it's just a tiny piece of the pie now. Most of their money was coming from things like medical tech, and yes, cosmetics and advanced materials. So what's the big takeaway here? What's the lesson from this tale of two giants? Well, it really all boils down to one thing: knowing who you really are. This is what we need to learn from Kodak and Fujifilm. Modern strategy isn't about defending your little patch of land anymore. It's not about building a higher wall. It's about deeply understanding your company's unique genes, your core skills, and then being brave enough to find a totally new ecosystem where that DNA gives you a winning edge. And that leaves us with a final and most critical question. It's the one Fujifilm got right and Kodak got so wrong. You have to ask yourself, what business are we really in? It forces you to look beyond what you sell today and find the true fundamental value you create. And in a world that is always changing, answering that question honestly might just be the most important thing you ever do.